You're watching TVC Breakfast. Now let's get into our next discussion. Now, as celebrations from the new year begins to wind down and the students are preparing for the second term of the 2021-2022 academic session, in theory, schools are supposed to resume today, especially in Lagos State and in many, but in practice, let's see how it goes. The Lagos State government fixed today, January 4th, for public and private primary and secondary schools to resume for the second and also the second term, and also plans to monitor compliance with the resumption dates in the Lagos State Unified Academic Calendar. But the resumption announcement seems to be generating controversy among private school operators who had fixed Monday, January 10th for a return of pupils to schools. While some students may be excited to resume early as they will be seeing their friends and classmates after the holidays, managing the spread of the COVID-19 virus remains a major source of concern. And also, there are concerns that the difference in the resumption dates issued by the Lagos State government and that issued by private school operators may also alter the school calendar. All right. So we have joining us in the studio, Director La Posh School, Ronke Adeni, to help us make sense of all of this. Happy New Year, Ronke. Good to see you.
Good morning. What a
good
great
morning.
way to start.
Yeah, exactly. It's really nice. Now, when Lagos State said, let's resume on the 4th, and schools are preparing to, many schools are preparing to resume today as it is. But parents, a lot of parents are not even comfortable with 4th. We're just coming back from, some are, those who travel, some are still living in the village, and all of that. But talk to us from that perspective. Why is there this seeming disagreement as to, we're not comfortable, concern? What's that?
All right. So I'm one of those parents that is very hesitant to send her child to school. As a matter of fact, I didn't send my daughter to school today because we have to think about the peculiarities of our environment, of our society. It's Harmattan season. It's so dusty. Are we going to resume with the janitors, with the children and teachers? When are we going to have those meetings? Was there any stakeholder engagement? People are still getting over Dirty December right now. A lot of people are still in the village. A lot of people are still traveling down back to, a lot of people are still hungover. They're not ready. Mental state, not ready. A lot of children, bear in mind that we just finished New Year. A lot of our children, they've not cut their hair. They've not done their hair for school. They're not ready. The readiness cannot be there because it's just, the time is too tight. It's quite abrupt. So we need to think about our environment, especially with the Omicron around and also with Harmattan around right now. Health and well-being, safeguarding of those children is priority above resumption. It's school. It is just school. There's no rush. I don't see what the rush is because you need to get the individuals, the teachers ready psychologically to ready. They're not rushing around. A lot of children, a lot of teachers that I spoke to online are already saying that they are resuming, but their own children's schools are not resuming yet. Where are they going to put their children? So there's this issue with teachers' children as well, not knowing where to put the children. All these things put children at risk. So who have we spoken to? Who have our leaders spoken to? What sort of stakeholder engagement has happened along the way?
Well, it's quite an issue to look at because when you're talking about children, it's quite sensitive and delicate because their welfare is something to consider. And at this time where parents are, how much is school fees? I need to put this together, and
exactly.
But let's talk about the issue of the COVID-19 and protocols and all of that. Now, talk to us from the window of preparing to accept and welcome students back to school at times like this. What kind of protocols are in place differently from what we used to have before?
They're not significantly different, but we have to let the children understand that the transmission rate of this particular variant is very rapid, whilst the effects may not be as adverse as the Delta and the other previous ones. It's still something that we can do without. So when are we going to speak to the children about this variant? When are we going to remind them? Because they've been at home, they've not been wearing masks at home. Some of them have just been doing their own thing amongst family members, So that habit of sanitizing my hand, washing my hand, they've not been doing it. So when you get to school, they need a refresher. Children always need it. Just that when you finish teaching the lesson, you have to go over it again.
Yeah.
And when you want to teach it next week, you say, what do you remember from last week? So you start that again with the children. And then with the teachers, let them also know what they're going to do. Then talk about the calendar, you know. A lot of schools, in preschools, primary schools, they do displays. Even while some of them may have done, like ours, we've done it in December, because I know that January is always a bit tricky. People, so they don't wake up in time. But a lot of schools, their displays have not been done. You know, they've not had so many meetings that they ought to have so that the running of the school is effective. They've not had all those things. So they're just going to be pushed back into school. So what are they going to do today, to be honest? Because I was playing with my friend. I said, I don't want my daughter's uniform to be the one that will clean the school. You know, when they're all washing around, why are they going to put them? On my way here, when I was driving past, I saw a school and there were multitudes of children outside. And I was just curious. I knew that it must be because it was so dirty. Because they were just hanging around outside, doing nothing, just, you know, interacting amongst themselves. And look, it's already past 8. Ideally, they should be in class. But think about it. Somebody needs to clean the school. That's not going to happen. And that is critical. And cleaning Harmattan time is something else.
It's
fumigating,
cockroaches,
all sorts of things that will have happened in that time. And then a lot of teachers might not even come back to certain schools. So schools are going to be like, you know how teachers, they're so nomadic. They move around anyhow. Heart doesn't want to be on TV.
So he has no choice.
So they're very nomadic.
I like the way you look this way. Anyway, it's really beautiful. I
get to have 2 looks.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
So they're very nomadic. So some schools might be looking for some teachers to replace, you know, the ones that have moved on, because January a lot of people have New Year's resolution, they move on. So there's some issues that schools will need to pay attention, and they need time to be able to do it.
Now, there is the concern with the issue of water, because water seems to be very central and critical to, you know, wherever children are, wherever people gather, and all of that, especially in some of the public schools that we've seen. And when school inspections or the inspectors from the ministries come to check some of these things, what do they look forward to seeing? And why do we still have instances where we don't have running water in some of the schools?
Why do we still have instances? Why do we have so many challenges in Nigeria? That's pretty much the same thing you're saying. Why do we have some schools that don't have table and chairs? Why do we have schools that have 150 children in the class? Why do we have children that have 200? These are all processes. These are all systems that need to be checked and repaid. All these challenges, they'll come around. I mean, private schools, for many, not all, it's a bit different. You have running water, boreholes, and all those things exist. But in many public schools, you know, toilets, and that is even the more reason why we shouldn't resume today. That is even because hygiene, safety of the children. How do you know what is happening in those schools right now? I feel children going to school now is a risk. It's a risk. We need to look after their well-being.
All right. Now, the Parent Teachers Association, the meeting that always holds from time to time, what kind of agreements are reached at times like this, where there's a balance between what the government is saying, what the school authority is saying, and then what the parents also want, and all of that? Because there has to be an agreement between these three before some of these kind of policies are put forward. Yeah. What kind of agreements are reached at times like that?
That's why I talked about stakeholder engagement. I don't believe that it exists, and if it does, it's not significant enough to bring the change that we want. So schools really need to speak to their parents as well and sense check, try and figure out, you know, you have a rapport with your parents and know what it is that they want. I mean, if you check on my Instagram page right now, you will see parents are going, as in comments, they're like, they're just doing their own. I'm not sending my children to school. So even when the schools have tried and done everything to be open, parents are saying they're not sending their children. I am not sending my own child to school, because even the roads, I don't feel they're safe at the moment. I feel opportunities to be there because it's so scanty right now. Driving here, I got here, it was so free and easy. It doesn't seem like, I mean, once we don't want traffic, but that is the reality of our environment. So sending my child to school, and her school is not even local, you know, all the way down on the school bus. And I even know that her school bus driver just came back from the village. Is he really awake? You know, I don't want to use her as a guinea pig at all.
Is he really awake?
Is he really awake? Because he just came back now. He just came back from the village during his own dirty December. Then he would use my daughter, put her on the school bus in this car. No.
It's all right. Well, the point there is there has to be a balance somewhere between government saying, schools have to resume at this time, and then what this. I think your heart is just behind you. Waiting,
it is. I can see it's right here.
No, let's have it back on.
Look, I was doing it for you.
It looks beautiful. It looks beautiful all sides. Amazing. So you have 2 looks on the show today. Amazing.
Thank you.
Nice one. Now the point there is, let's talk about the projection for the semester. Now we see that every time that the school resumes, everyone looks forward to, okay, what is going to be up this term, and this term. In secondary school is term, university is semester. Okay, fine. In the new term and all of that. Now, talk to us about strategies of teaching at this time when we're looking at so many issues of concern. Security on one hand, the COVID-19 on the other. So what does it take to teach, taking these 2 factors into cognizance at the same time in class?
It takes a lot of flexibility. Now, like I said, it will always be different for private schools and government schools. Okay. The reality is that all schools should know that they might have to even go back to the days of online learning. Who knows what's going to happen? Who knows what the next variant is going to be? Who knows how the transmission rate is going to affect children? Because even before holidays, there were a lot of children that had the COVID-19. So what's going to happen? So schools need to be responsive. Schools need to be very flexible. They need to know that if a child is ill, tell the parent not to bring the child to school. However, learning must continue. So you can continue learning online. So learning should not be paused. We have to understand that we are living in an environment now where it's not only the physical classroom that works. So if something is happening in a class, maybe 2, 3 children are already fallen ill, you must kind of like figure out that there's something going on in that class. Let's isolate the children in that class. But whilst we do that, because it's not everybody that is run down by the variants, by this COVID-19, if they're capable and able to continue with their learning, let them continue to do so. So that flexibility, that responsiveness, and constant hygiene, ensuring that the children don't get fed up of, because the children, like even especially the younger ones, they get so tired of this mask and this, that, and the other. But make it fun, especially when you have young ones. Make it fun. Give them a song to sing whilst they wash their hands. Let it be something exciting so that they can continue to be safe, and because they can take it home. It becomes a habit. They can take these things home, and it's more severe oftentimes when they take it home to their parents.
The issue of online learning you talked about, how impactful was that though? Because we saw during the lockdown sometime last year, we had online learning. In fact, we even had learning on TV, on radio, and so. But how impactful was that though?
Yeah, I mean, it was better than nothing, number one. Okay. And then it did the job. Now, with every child, there's differentiation. In the physical classroom, there's some children that thrive and do very well in the physical classroom. But believe you me, there are children online that did better because they were online. They didn't have to interact with the bullies. They didn't have to interact with anybody.
And other distractions here and
they
there.
don't want it, and it was their space. They loved that online space, and they thrived and they did well. There's younger ones like preschoolers. You can't even engage them. You are starting your own. They don't even want to know what is going on. So it really depends on the child. But all in all, if it was well implemented, I think it was effective.
How do schools monitor the online learning, especially see it from the perspective of, okay, I'm reaching out to my students, my pupils in so area. This is set up for you where you are, and then what we're dishing out to you, you are following. How does the school enhance and ensure that kind of monitoring system?
It's feedback. You always need feedback, whatever you do, even in the physical classroom. So online learning it's just a different version of the classroom. So you've taught something, you want feedback from the children. And the sort of online learning that you implement also determines the kind of feedback. So if you're using WhatsApp, it may be a little less, it may be a little tricky. But if you're using a video conference and you can actually see your pupil, you can see how they're interacting, you can even tell when it's like, they're like, I don't get it. You can tell. So it depends on which platform that you're using. But it's always important that you give feedback, and there are quizzes, there are mini tests that you can do here and there to know whether the child is learning. But beyond the learning, it's not only academic work that is important. There's personal, social, emotional development of the child that is very essential. You don't just want the child to know everything and then they're hooked on pornography, who know everything, or they're with a frustrated dad and mom at home beating them all the time. They're not happy, because learning is state dependent. So you have to make sure that it's holistic and it's balanced.
Now, this resumption today, a lot of people say it's going to somehow affect the school calendar, the unified school calendar. Talk to us how this is going to impact it.
I mean, it's a week. What do we typically do in week one? Think about it. What do we typically do? We do revision with the children. Some of them settle back in. Some of them have fun. Some of them have play. We do a little of teaching, but it's not the core. You know, we do some reorientation. Depends on the school and what they do. But I think missing a few days, 4 days of school is not the end of the world. No, it's not. If we could do with COVID-19 and all those sort of things that happened to us, missing 4 days.
We were home for several months.
Nothing's going to happen. Nothing.
Wow.
No. Nothing's going to happen.
Is a missing school for 4 days? Well, the heavens will not fall.
No way.
But the issue there is government also has an obligation, one way or the other, to ensure that we guide, you know, learning in a certain way. And as much as we talk about the issue of stakeholders, there also has to be a way of seeing it from the perspective where government is seeing it from too, you know, and going into that atmosphere where, okay, fine, what can we do to balance? So this week, well, the government has said there's no going back, we're resuming. So what will happen this week now before Monday? Give us a picture of what kind of engagement that will happen between...
You mean between the government and who?
No, within the schools now, because the government has said schools should resume.
So what can happen? You have to make the most of the situation, whatever the case may be. I mean, depending on the type of school, you can still go online. A lot of schools still use a lot of platforms because it's not. COVID-19. It wasn't an implementation of systems. Wasn't a temporary thing. You can still continue learning to make sure that your schools are safe and are clean, and then you've passed on the information to the children. If you have to gather them and they are all there, I can promise you, I mean, the system, a lot of cleaners are not going to be at work today. I promise you, a lot of them will not be there. It might even be some of those teachers that will have to clean the school. So whatever has to happen, even if you own the school, just get your mop and your broom, get ready, clean. I mean, some schools, the children also clean. Whatever you can, you have to just make it happen because we've been told to resume. So get to school.
All right. Do pupils still embark on excursions outside of school to visit places and all of that? Talk to us about that. Some
schools do. We, for example, at La Poche, we only do it based on what is happening in the environment. And we also bounce off parents. If I don't feel safe sending my own biological child, I will not send the children in the school. So there was a time where we wanted to go to Abeokuta to go to the library, for example, Basango's library. We couldn't, when we started hearing about Fulani headmen, this and that and the other. You know, when you hear all these things and you know it's happening, then you don't want to send children on excursion. What is important for their learning and in the development, but our environment does not encourage it.
Talk to us about the impact of those excursions. I remember in primary school, I think so, sometime so many years ago, we took an excursion to a radio station, and that memory has never left. Here we are.
You see, you've answered your question already.
You know, but talk to us about how impactful those things are in the learning process for the children.
See, we've moved on from a time where learning is just content. The teacher is a knowledge or base. He or she knows everything and just speaks at the children. Learning should be real and alive. So when children go on excursions, some children have not even seen a chicken. They eat it, but they've not seen a chicken. The day we brought a chicken we brought chickens for our preschoolers. Live chickens. The school scattered.
Whoa.
Preschoolers, pew, pew, everywhere running away. This is chicken that they eat all the time. But they did not know what it looked like. Chicken.
Wow.
Not to talk of, we're looking at lions or elephants or ostriches or, you know, going rock climbing or things like that. Exciting things. It brings learning to life. It keeps it alive and it stays with them forever, just like it did with you.
Oh, yeah, yeah, exactly. Because when we went to the radio station, I didn't have a single idea what this whole thing was, but I saw some persons talking on a microphone. Okay, you know, you just see what's going on there, and they say, oh, it's the radio station and all of that. But when we grew up, we got to understand what this is about, and here we are today, like you said, you know, doing all of those things and so on. Now, the issue of besides excursion is the issue of exchange program. Outside of Nigeria, for instance, we see a lot of exchange programs where students from certain places move to other places, you know, interrelate in schools, you know, on certain kind of projects and programs. Do we have that here?
We do have exchange programs, but I don't really see a lot of foreigners coming in. They may, but I don't really see it anymore. I see more of children going to Dubai, going to the UK or anywhere around the world to learn, to get experiences. I see them Skyping and getting experiences online. I don't really see foreigners, you know, exchanging anything. I don't see them. That doesn't happen.
but that should have been good for students, isn't it?
Awesome, awesome. Exploring, you know, a lot of security risks. How many people would send their children from Singapore to Nigeria? They're scared. They're worried about security issues. Even we that live here are worried about security. If I can't send my child to Abeokuta, then I'm living in the UK, I'll send my child home and do one exchange program. Whilst it's good, it's amazing and healthy, and it exposes them, because travel is learning. You know, it really exposes them to a lot of things, language, culture, so many things. It is good. However, again, unfortunately, our environment doesn't really encourage a lot of foreigners to bring their children here.
All right. As much as we have the realities of security around us, a lot of people will still say that it may not be as terrible as it is portrayed in some. We've had that comments from some persons, and then a backlash of it as well, because another person who was making the statement didn't fall in the category of, okay, well, because you fly every time, so you wouldn't know how real these things are, you know, comments here and there. But let's talk about the issue of phones among students in schools. Some parents have argued that because, especially for students who are in the boarding schools, where you don't get to see mommy and daddy every day, you know, and all of that, you don't wake up from home, so they need to give you a phone so that you can communicate with mom and dad if need be. Now, talk to us from that window, how helpful or not are the issue of phones among students?
So phones are essential and non-essential items. So how you manage it. You see, anything that is not managed is subject to abuse. So it's how you manage it. If a child is in boarding school, there should be access to speak to their parents at certain times. It shouldn't be on their person for them to be distracted all the time. So it's how you manage it. Am I out of time? It's how you manage the phone usage. So there should be maybe 5 to 6 o'clock or whatever the time may be that they can use to communicate. Parents are comfortable that everything is going on fine. The child is comfortable and that they've been able to relay that kind of information. But it shouldn't be on that person because it's a distraction to their learning.
Because the point there is, of course, parents won't be there. So if they have a phone, some have recommended that phones should be left with the the house masters and house mistresses, where the parent can call the house master. Okay, I need to speak to the child maybe at 5 o'clock or at 6 p.m. today. So the child comes and then you speak with the child, and after then the phone is kept back and all of that, because if you leave it in the hands of the children,
they'll be there all day.
They'll keep exploring all of those things and all of that. But anyway, let's leave it here now. Thank you so much, Ronke Adeni, for your time on the program. Thank you so much for coming every time. We had 2 of your looks today, one with the hat and one without the hat. Really interesting, really interesting.